All right, it is time to preview a round two series that I was really kind of hoping would happen. The Tampa Bay Lightning are against the Boston Bruins in a matchup of the two best teams out of the Atlantic Division. So I'm looking forward to this and seeing which team will be the better. I lean towards Tampa in terms of who I think probably wins, but of course I'm cheering for Boston. So that's, again, the way I'm going with this round. I'm wearing the jersey of the team I'm cheering for. And in this case, that's one that any followers of this channel won't really be surprised by. Not if you follow the channel for any period of time. So when we look at the overall totals, honestly, Tampa's been more impressive since the return than Boston. But Boston had a really good round against Carolina. And the question that has to be asked is, so were they that good? Was Carolina that off? And we're going to find out pretty early in this series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The odds are the winner of this series could very well end up being the champion, but I don't know. We'll see how that turns out. And of course, there's some interesting storylines in this when it comes to injury and when it comes to exits from the bubble. So on the Tampa Bay side, their leading scorer, Braden Point, 8 games, 5 goals, 5 assists, 10 points. Honestly, Point has been fantastic since he came up as a rookie. He's fantastic now. Hasn't been a surprise to me along the way. Kucherov, 8 games, 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points. You would be forgiven for thinking, well, Kucherov's been kind of quiet. 9 points in 8 games tells you he's been suspiciously quiet for a guy with more than a point a game, and he's due for a breakout. And who knows what kind of point totals he can bring up after that. Next on the list is Tyler Johnson, 8 games, 3 goals with 1 assist. Alex Killorn, 8 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. And Yanni Gourde with 8 games played, 2 goals, 2 assists as well. Now, conspicuous by his absence, of course, is Stamkos. He has yet to make his debut in the bubble. He's there. My thinking is, does he play right away? Because if he's not in game one, odds are he may not play in the series. But, it's been so mysterious and we just don't know what's going on with Stamkos. But we know he's not playing. And if he plays, that could be a huge difference maker for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hedman, 8 games, 1 goal, 2 assists. Kind of quiet by Hedman's standards, but Hedman had a very solid series against Columbus. So when he's not scoring points, Victor Hedman is still one of the best defensemen in the league. He doesn't require the points, the offense, in order to be regarded as that. Vasilevsky in net, of course, 6-2 with a .927 save percentage, was excellent against Columbus for the most part. And again, that's for the most part. He was overshadowed by Korpisalo in the last round. He actually played very well. And so, for Tampa, things look pretty good. But for Boston, things do as well. David Krejci has turned the clock back 9 years. 8 games, 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points for him. Looks the best he has since the Bruins won the Stanley Cup. Absolutely great round for him against Carolina. Marchand, 8 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. He had his ups and downs during that series against Carolina, but once you get Pasta back in the lineup, things get better. Bergeron, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points in 8 games. Bergeron, because he's such a great two-way forward, if he's not getting points, he is still being a very useful part of the team. And hard to pick a bad game for Bergeron along the way. Pastrnak, 5 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists for him. Waiting on some goals from Pasta as well. But of course, he came back into the lineup. You've got to think he's probably not completely 100% at this stage. And we'll see how that goes for him. And McAvoy, 8 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. McAvoy can play a ton of minutes, and I honestly think he's underrated by fans of other teams and probably overrated at times by Bruins fans, and the reality is somewhere in the middle, but he's a pretty solid top option. Krug, 3 assists in 8 games. Krug has driven me insane at times since the return. At other times, he's looked pretty solid. He's good on the power play. 5-on-5, he does have his errors along the way, but hoping for a big series from him. And Kasha, who's had 4 assists in 6 games. He hasn't had his first goal yet either, but Kasha's been a great pickup from Anaheim. Of course, if you go back through videos back to last season, I've been talking about how much I like Andre Kasha with the Ducks. So obviously, it's not just I hated him with the Ducks, but I like him with the Bruins. It's not what's happening. It's not how any of that works. And Kasha's been solid. Rask, before he left the bubble, was 1-3 with a .904 save percentage. Halak, 3-1 with a .912 save percentage. And this is the benefit of having two really good goaltenders. Tampa doesn't have that. So Tampa Bay, if Vasilevsky were to get hurt, that would be a huge tipping point. But again, we haven't really seen that in the bubble where we've seen goaltenders out other than Bishop in Dallas, which worked out okay for Dallas. Worked out pretty good. So, hopefully goaltenders do well. And of course, if something were to happen to Halak, Vladar ends up being the goaltender. Your guess is as good as mine about how that would go. So, both teams likely crossing their fingers and hoping for the best for their starting goaltenders in this one. These teams met a lot during the regular season. These games were often unfriendly. October 17th of 2019, Tampa Bay won in a shootout 4-3 in Boston. December 12th, Tampa Bay won at home 3-2 against Boston. March 3rd, Boston won in Tampa Bay 2-1. March 7th, so not very long before the break. 5-3 was the score in favor of Tampa. So Tampa won 3 out of 4 during the regular season. And then on August 5th, during the round robin, Tampa Bay beat Boston in a game 3-2 that it felt like Boston was giving maybe a 75% effort in, and Tampa was giving 85%, and that got them over the top. We'll see how things go in the playoffs. When these teams have met in the playoffs, 2011, Boston won in 7. I still remember the anger from Tampa fans after Game 7. So Tampa Bay's power play during the 2011 playoffs was fantastic. It was lethal. And Boston hadn't really been able to stop it. Game 7 featured 0 power plays, 0 penalties, and so the conspiracy theory at the time was they didn't give anybody a power play because they didn't want Tampa Bay to get a power play, or else Boston would have lost. And I remember that game being a 1-0 game too. And I remember thinking at the time, but if they can't win it 5-on-5, but I understood where Tampa was coming from, but I thought that was weird. All right, refs, don't call anything. Head comes off, just put the head back on the shoulders, put him back on the bench. 2018, Tampa Bay got their revenge. They won in 5. This was in the second round. 2011 was a conference finals. And the funny thing is that, because 2011, of course, is when Vancouver and Boston played in the finals, I kind of roundabout way wanted Tampa Bay to win that series because I thought Tampa was a better matchup for Vancouver than Boston. I thought with the style Tampa played, I thought Vancouver would have a better chance of beating Tampa in the Stanley Cup Finals than beating Boston. So that was where I was torn on the whole thing at the time. So, special teams, Tampa Bay 13.3% on the power play. And interestingly enough, going back to 2011, the biggest complaint coming out of that series with Columbus, they don't get enough power plays. Penalty kill, 87.1%. Their penalty kill, excellent, but they were against Columbus, and Columbus's power play was, it was Columbus's power play. Boston, their power play clicking at 17.9%. Not fantastic, but not too bad. Penalty kill, 85.7% for the Boston Bruins. So, special teams is close. Honestly, it's probably a wash. Like I said, when you look at who they were against, you can kind of declare it a wash, and we'll see how it goes from here. Now, if I'm grading this, and of course I'm going to, this is tough because I think this matchup is really, really close. I think we probably see a 7-game series here. Keep in mind, there are going to be back-to-backs. If this series goes 7 games, there will be 2 back-to-backs in this series. Whoever wins the series, if it does go the full 7, is going to be pretty banged up. So, if I'm giving an advantage for forwards, to me it depends whether or not Stamkos plays. So, if Stamkos doesn't play, I would honestly give the forwards edge to Boston. Because, again, they've got Kasha. Charlie Coyle's been very good for Boston as well. There's a lot of players for Boston that have been playing very, very well. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Tampa. I just think that with I'm not calling them perfection line back together, as long as Pasta's playing, I give them the edge. If Stamkos is playing for Tampa, to me, it's a wash. It's a wash, but we don't know yet, right? Defense, I think, I honestly, I'm going with Tampa on this one. I think that in terms of defense core, I would go with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hedman is the best defenseman in this series. While I respect Chara's veteran leadership, and I love McAvoy, I love Krug, and I love all those guys, I think that as a 6-man unit, even Zach Bogosian was pretty good in the last round. Bogosian looked pretty solid. So we'll see whether or not that can continue. Goaltending, For goaltending, I'm going with Tampa Bay. You have to. If I right now said I'm going to take Halak over Vasilevsky, rightfully everybody should say, and that sounds biased, because it would be. I can't come up with any argument for how Halak would be a better goaltender right now than Vasilevsky. Can't be done. And if it went to the backups, McElhinney versus Vladar, I give him the edge there too. So, yeah, again, Tampa Bay, they get the edge for me in net. I don't know that it's necessarily close. The no pressure side of it, that's a tough one to call. Is there more pressure on the Bruins? Is there more pressure on Tampa? I'm going to sit this one out, and you guys tell me. I can't figure out which one I'm leaning towards when it comes to which team has more pressure on them. Boston, Stanley Cup Finals last year. There's an expectation of them maybe winning a championship this year. And Tampa, after last year's flame out in the first round, there is some pressure on them to win a Stanley Cup. But again, I'm not sure. You guys can tell me which team you think has more pressure, because again, I think it's kind of a 50-50. Give me your pick as well on who you think is going to win the series. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.